Hello and welcome to International Temple Body Arts Day. I am here with Anaiya Sophia, and Anaiya Sophia is an independent mystic of an almost forgotten faith and a teacher of Kundalini Yoga. She carries an oral transmission from the sacred feminine mysteries, which she weaves into all her gatherings. This mystical tradition is a continuous lineage with the feminine principle that throughout the centuries has preserved its spiritual dignity without need for permission or recognition from any other source. She is the author of many incredible books, which I recommend checking out. And one of them that I had the honor of reading, which is Womb Wisdom, which really helped me to open up even deeper into the mysteries within my own womb. So thank you so much and welcome, Anaiya Sophia.
Oh, thank you so much, Sophia, for bringing me to this beautiful meeting together.
Definitely. So I would love to begin with, really this forgotten faith, this feminine principle that you weave through in everything that you do and write about.
Well, I feel that this faith, if you like, is a living lineage that has always been here since Eve, shall always be here, and throughout centuries has sometimes been sleeping and sometimes incredibly awake. And my feeling is that this period, this epoch that we're in now, this is a time for this lineage to really awaken again. And everybody who's part of it is feeling this kind of fiery aliveness to own it and start living it again.
Beautiful. And how do you explain what is this feminine principle for those of the women that are watching who this is fairly new for them? Like, how would you explain what this is and how to make contact with it within your own body?
Well, body is exactly the right word. I feel it's an impulse that it actually comes from the center of the body in the womb, and it is a bodily medicine. So it is an expression that comes out from one body to another. It's not a theory. You can't conceptualize it or theorize it or even doing what I'm trying to do now. But if you're carrying this memory in the body, by simply even hearing these words, something might start resonating. Because my feeling is back in the day, whether we have past lives or whether we're part of an ancestral field that remembers, I believe our sacred wisdom was embedded in the body for safekeeping and to remember again. And so as we do our healing of the body and opening and movement of the body, so this material starts becoming available again. It's definitely not something that gets told. You don't learn it, you live it, or rather you give yourself permission to live it.
To experience it. Yeah, I really look at our life as really like the path of remembrance.
Yes.
It's like we're here to remember what we've forgotten. And so, I love, in your book, Womb Wisdom, and how, speaking of the womb being this portal and, entering into and remembering like really who we are, but like from in a even bigger cosmic sense.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to speak more about that.
Well, for me, the womb is a presence. It's a presence and it's a place of coming from. It's important when we do our womb work, my feeling is that we also unite this with the heart's presence. And they are actually at first a very different quality of expression. But I believe the way forward, a bit like the sacred marriage, is to unify these two. If we stay in an area that's womb-centered only, we may well be walking around like Kali with her sacred rage at these early stages for a long period of time. We must unite it with the heart. And this, I believe, is absolutely Mary Magdalene. This is one of my favorite inspirational beings. This is her message, to unite it with the Sacred Heart as well. Maybe that's why she was with Yeshua, because they're both transmitting two different but very complementary expressions. Sacred Heart, Holy Womb.
Beautiful. And you spoke about the sacred marriage. So, yeah, the masculine, the feminine, or
this is
I know that's a huge part of the work that you're doing, and so important. Yeah,
this is my favorite part of the work, because as I go deeper into this in my own journey, so I'm realizing just how real this sacred marriage is. I guess when I first started, it was, again, a concept, a theory, that it would be important for me to connect with my masculine self, which is my drive, my protection, my direct speaking, and to bring that with my feminine, which is spontaneous, very playful, very deeply creative and imaginative. But I'm realizing now, as the years pass, when Mary was talking about sacred marriage, she really was talking about sacred marriage. And so as a woman, totally embodying that male energy, exactly in the same way we see our male friends. So really going there, learning the ability to penetrate, learning the ability to absolutely enter a lady from a great distance and awaken her in exactly the same way that we feel that energy when we're kind of attracted to someone, not being afraid of doing that if that is what is appropriate in the moment. And this is so freeing. And so, of course, one of my other greats is Andrew Harvey. So when he speaks of the sacred androgyne, he is absolutely speaking of a human being that has great, easy access to their rich feminine self and their direct and charismatic masculine self. And this being will use anything within its arsenal to absolutely meet you and connect with every part of you to awaken. So
you do that in your work simply by, so simply by embodying it, by feeling it, and holding that energy in your body. Yeah, because I do it through the dance. So I'll have people literally, like moving through, like very penetrative and like cutting through the space, and that one pointed focus. I mean, it's such a different energy, and the feminine is so wide and expansive and fluid, and it's beautiful to bring those two together. So can you share some of the ways that you have experienced and that you share with others?
Well, I guess one of the things I do is I make two circles. So I have an inner circle of men or women facing out, and an outer circle of men or women facing in. And you literally just move around one to the other, one to the other. So you're going in different directions. And every time you come to another person, you absolutely show them your vulnerability and your preciousness and your openness. Again, with you, I work with movement and music. And then you show them the other face. You show them the charisma, the confidence, the penetrative ability. And of course, us ladies, we dare not do that kind of stuff to one another, especially if you're slightly older. You haven't been taught that. And so again, this word permission, to actually stand before another lady and dare to be that masculine presence. And you see her light up like a Christmas tree. And, you know, you're not even touching her, but you've just, okay, I dare do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And of course she receives. And you're like, what? How did that happen? Permission is the key word. And then it becomes real. Sacred marriage is now an embodied reality. Yeah.
And I know you're about to come into a sacred marriage and actually get married.
Yes.
And the beauty, I really feel that, you know, when we can build that, create that inner marriage within ourselves, it really, we become whole in ourselves, and then more available to really meet another whole being and come together.
Absolutely. Sometimes,
So I'd love
you know,
you to share,
my beloved is a beautiful man called Pete. And let's just say something's not quite meeting up in the outside expression of ourselves. Because I have permitted my male self so much authentic expression that if I can't meet Pete, of course, my human heart is disappointed and missing him, missing some part of him, or rather, that's the story. I now can turn into a very reliable source, my own male self, and rest in his arms or rest in his presence. And, you know, I might say something like, I don't feel like I'm being met. And of course, he is so fully formed now that he will put his arms around me energetically and say, oh, beloved, I am completely here. And it's so real. But of course, before that sacred marriage, I may well have whinged and whined and pulled at Pete and done anything I can to manipulate the situation to bring him to me. But now it's like,
give me attention.
Yeah. And of course, the same thing with him. He has such a beautiful, developed feminine presence that if I'm being too driven, you know, by something, some sort of goal I'm looking to achieve, and he is needing that deep, maybe even wordless emotional support, and if I'm not there, then he can, of course, turn to his feminine self and have a beautiful dialogue that will comfort him, and he'll feel the compassion that he was wanting to receive from me. So that's an immediate way. This is a very, again, reliable resource on the inside. And of course, then my male can play with feels like his female.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, this is really like an expression of true sovereignty.
Yes.
When you are fully developed within yourself, and that, you know, ownership of oneself and responsibility. And like, what is your perspective around sovereignty and even sexual sovereignty with the work that you do?
Oh, I believe this is so important, especially for the women, this sexual sovereignty. Learning to say no, daring to say no, and having that self-love piece to scan the environment, you know, in the moment of potential lovemaking, scan the environment, scan the self, scan the other. And if it's not lining up, to absolutely speak that sacred no on behalf of your own sovereignty, to being that loving presence or that temple, and allowing that to be totally okay. And at first it's difficult because I believe, I certainly know I was programmed that if that no comes, I'm going to be judged on many, many different areas. And so, you know, saying your no and holding your head up high and explaining, because I hold a higher value. This is not okay for me, but, you know, if we could adjust this, this, and this, because I am the temple. And if you want to come into the temple, if you want to meet God, then there needs to be a few little adjustments to be made first. And realize that, ladies, you are the temple. The living presence is inside of your body.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that we're not taught we're only taught about, well, you want to protect yourself from sexually transmitted diseases and getting pregnant. But it's like, what about protection from really the state of being that this man is entering you and penetrating his state into you? And, you know, that we can then take on all of this other energy from somebody else, and it completely confuses us as women. We're unable to really discern what is ours and what is theirs. And and you know, I know this is a huge piece that I teach, and I'd love for you to share anything around this piece about really that, you know, we are absorbing and taking on.
Exactly, especially as we do our womb work and open that womb to that recognition that the womb simply takes an energetic photograph of the moment of intercourse. And it's taking into qualities 3 aspects: where you are emotionally, where he is emotionally, and the environment in which this act is happening. And, you know, when we get into relationship, we have to look at that beloved's past. What did his ancestors do? You know, has there been, well, things like rapes? Has there been prison time? Has there been drug taking? This is part of this beloved's makeup and history. This is what's coming in. Be aware that this is what's coming in. And of course, we are not holier than thou. You know, it's not as if we're walking around with these fabulous ancestors. Everything is meeting in this act of love, especially if you're on this path of awakening and remembering and becoming. Everything is coming into this merging and being willing to understand what is happening, look it in the eye and say, yes, I accept. Let's do this together. Let's transmute this. Let's look this one deeply, face to face.
So having the consciousness to recognize it, and then the work you can do to really transmute. Like, what are some ways that we can share with women today on, you know, kind of clearing their wombs and you know, clearing the ancestral lineage that we're holding?
Well, I like to work with crystal yoni eggs rather than the jade. For me, the jade egg represents that Asian tradition. And I cannot feel my resonance with that. I respect it completely and utterly, but I know I'm not carrying that code. For me, it has to be the angelic realms and the crystals. So I always say to the ladies, this is a 3-stage process. Start off with a piece of rose quartz, a rose quartz yoni egg, and recognizing that you're putting in a presence of a very delicate, sweet-natured maiden. This is the young part of you beginning this journey and very delicately and gently starting to heal the womb and remove those old beloveds that we may have had very mindless sex with. And then stage 2, reach for a deeper red yoni egg, maybe a red carnelian, a red jasper, something like that. And realizing now that you're coming into the fiery mother energy. So maybe a being like Mary Magdalene. This is a very voluptuous, well-rounded and deeply present and in her energy, in her expression. So she's going to be a little bit more ruthless with her work. It's like, okay, it's time to heal. It's time to clear. It's time to release. And then when it's a very, very big work, and I would say when you're more spiritually mature and more able to hold that sort of dark night moment, then it's time to bring in the black obsidian, which is kind of the equivalent of placing Kali or the Black Madonna, a very ruthless and absolute healing medicinal journey. And this, of course, would be for the deeper trespasses. So things like rapes or very inappropriate sexual activity, or maybe if you've been with a partner that was had a very big impression upon you, you know, he had a bit of a hold over you psychically, then you would need that level. So yes, the crystal Yoni eggs. And another way I work is to actually be bare upon the earth and start creating that relationship with the bare Yoni on the earth, on the grass, on the rock, on the mountain, and literally let that little figure of 8 dialogue start happening.
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. So essentially for women that have not used the Yoni egg, so it's these different energies, almost like archetypes that are being held in the stones, are going in and working with your intention, and then can literally absorb. Do they absorb or transmute? Like, how are they working inside the Yoni in the womb?
I would say, so first of all, there's a presence meeting another presence. Now, whenever that happens in a lady, the first thing that can arise is like a shame, because something else is in that area. And of course, we're not used to placing Yoni eggs inside of us. There is oh, this is naughty, this is forbidden, this is not allowed. It will be there. I expect it to be there at that early stage. So first of all, wonderful. Here we have my sexual shame immediately starting to speak to me. And so you can begin that conversation of, I am allowing this. I am permitting this to happen. What is the difference between wearing a piece of rose quartz here in a necklace or wearing a piece of rose quartz inside of me? So just working on that relationship until it's absolutely at peace, absolutely at peace. And then again, with your intention, you can either ask the egg to absorb and transmute, or you could ask the egg to give and to heal and to bring beauty and authenticity and vulnerability. Some ladies, especially us in the West, the Yoni can be very desensitized and very what I would call hyper. Because again, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you've been kind of taught to use sex toys and vibrators and that highly stimulating devices. That's part of being in the 80s. And so a lot of ladies can feel like they can't feel anything anymore. It's been so amped up down there. And so when you work with the Yoni egg, it's like, oh, a relaxation. Suddenly all that crazy stimulating energy is being soaked up by the angelic presence of that crystal. And you're starting to feel yourself again. The actual flesh part of you, the energetics. So it can go both ways, is my feeling.
Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, and just the beauty of giving ourselves permission to connect in with our yonis and to recreate in a way, or like establish a new relationship to this erotic presence that moves through us. Because like you said, you know, using these sex toys and other things can desensitize us to really this current that's flowing all the time.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And there's a great thing that us ladies can do.
Yeah.
It's, let's just say, you know, you're starting to feel a bit poorly, you're starting to feel a bit sick, you know, your little lymph areas are starting to indicate, hey, I'm working with something, you know, a flu is coming, a cold is coming, or etc. If you can catch yourself in that early stage and simply put on your most music, you know, music that really brings up your Shakti, and with the last little drops of energy that you've actually got, you plow that into some erotic, gorgeous dance for yourself. I promise you, the next morning you will wake up right as rain. You may go on a little 24-hour fever, but you will wake up in the morning and that feeling of you're just about to go down with something, gone. And so we are our own little medicine cabinet.
Yeah, it's like you're tapping into that wellspring that
Yes.
is available to us. And you know, that's what I see. It's like when it's so important to have this inner marriage, to have that feminine capacity to tap into that Shakti and that wellspring.
Yes.
And that when we get so stuck in the doing and the lists and all of this, you know, the very masculine focused, that we can go into overdrive. And so that's why that balance is so important. What are practices? Do you have a daily practice that you do that helps you really just to stay in connection to this wellspring?
I would say my at the end of everything I do, like every morning I do Kundalini Yoga, but kind of like in my way, you know. It's been 18 years I've been studying this art form, and me personally, I've got to slot a dance in there. I have to bring in that big sort of erotic and devotional piece for the soul, for the beloved. And then at the end of that, I sit with my hands on my knees, and I'm realizing that my left hand is the embodiment of my queen, and my right hand is the embodiment of my king. And the feminine hand always goes first, because I believe it's always going to be the feminine part of us, especially in our lifetime, that will have to take the next step in relationship. If you're two males, if you're both in your masculine, you're going to be with your independence, and you simply won't have that feeling to cross the bridge and take another step into the realm of the leap of faith. It's the feminine part of us who longs for your intimacy and connection. She's the one, whether we're male or female, who will put down the independence and take that humble step. So my feminine part comes along, picks up my driven masculine, and brings him to the midline and takes his whole weight. So even things like shoulders relax, the ligaments and tendons in my neck and all of my planning and scheduling, all of that relaxes. And it's a very tender moment, because I say to myself, can I trust my feminine self to actually hold me? When I'm really motivational and direct and going for something, do I believe that my feminine is equally as rich and as deep as that power and has the ability to hold that? So a beautiful dialogue opens up. And then there's union, and then they go back together. And now the male comes along and says to my feminine self, okay, beloved, where are you still hanging out by yourself in your innermost sanctum? Where have I not met you yet? Where have I not seen you? Where have I not held you? And then he brings her to the midline. And again, allowing the left shoulder to drop, just letting it go, and letting my male presence find me in my female inner sanctum, the place that maybe a beloved hasn't met me yet. Because we're all works in training. We're all trying to figure out how this body works. So there's probably a very fine chance we will have the feeling of, I have not been met yet in that deep physical union with another. So I allow my male part to speak to that female part. And both always produces such gorgeous, what I call wholesome tears. Because you're meeting different parts of you. Often when I'm on a very strong masculine drive, I often have the feeling that no one can understand, why I'm doing what I'm doing, not emotionally, not really, only me. And that can be very lonely. So when my feminine part can hold that masculine, says, I understand why you're going right out on a limb right now. You're not going to go to bed until you've done this. So, yes.
I love that. I really feel this is what temple body arts is recognizing that we have everything within us.
Yes.
Everything that we're searching outside of ourselves is within us. And that ability to turn inward and to access our inner resources and the importance of carving out this time, whether it's even 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there, like whatever it is, to be able to really harness and cultivate this first primary relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
With the beloved within us.
Yeah.
And so I know that your work is very much based in Tantra and, really this belief that our body is an instrument of the divine and the beloved living within. And what would you say about our intimate tantric consort? I know that's a piece that you're passionate about. And
absolutely.
So I'd love to hear, what that is for you.
I guess for me, the beloved is the other human being. So I'm really talking about flesh beings now. The beloved is the one who says yes and means it. And you actually physically go on this big journey together. And the sacred marriage, the inner marriage, is now so kind of well defined that you're so okay with everything that's happening on the inside that you're now really ready to lay that out in open to the other one. So everything that you have discovered is now freely able to be danced and played with. But this brings in, especially when there's lovemaking, especially when the erotic and the emotional is flowing, this brings out enormous energies. And this is what I really want to emphasize. There needs to be like a little danger sticker and literally to say this is a very mature and spiritually fiery baptism. We're going to go into something here that has been very forbidden, very taboo. There could well be forces that are set up in the world with a little w to distract us away from this level of relating, literally allowing the erotic to flow, allowing the sacred love to flow, allowing direct truth telling to flow. So you're unlocking, literally like Yeshua and Mary, unlocking those 7 chakras and meeting. And there is this overwhelming commitment to absolutely stay in the process until both can recognize a desirable step has been taken and complete. You can't just open and run with this kind of work. You gotta hang in there. I'm not saying stay there to the end of time, but you must see that step all the way through to completion. And then you can decide, shall we go deeper? Yes. Okay. So I guess that's the element I'm really passionate about. I don't want to open up tantrically to others, and for others to open up tantrically if there's not an equal presence coming in from behind with that loyalty and commitment piece. Because to open and run, we're not getting anywhere with opening and running. We need to open and longevity.
Yeah.
And
meet
until,
it.
Yes.
Meet it head on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like you can almost like opening Pandora's box or something. I mean, when you're going so deep and you open up into the space, but then if you're not both fully committed to seeing it through, it can be dangerous.
Absolutely. And so disorientating. You know, asking for the beloved tantric consort is asking for rapid, whether we call it enlightenment or embodiment, rapid, one of those words beginning with E, a rapid journey into that. And it takes everything, and it will call upon everything. And it's enormous. It's a big energy.
And I know for many of us in relationships, I mean, I've been with my husband for 11 years, and you know, we're very different people in the way that we are spiritually and connect in different ways is very different, you know, and he's very supportive, obviously, of everything that I'm birthing here, and, you know, always supporting me in doing my own practice. And I weave in different aspects of the divine into, you know, our lovemaking. And how would you say, you know, is it possible to go into these deep realms when we're holding these different places of sitting? Like, how do we, because, you know, I hear you say the feminine takes that first step, which I really do believe. Like, as women, we're here to kind of guide the men as well. And so what are some kind of simple ways for women to guide our beloveds into a deepening in the lovemaking?
One of the things that I talk about is taking the war out of man. Now, this must not be approached as us ladies are going to heal the men. No, because they will run to the hills and say, we don't need your healing. Again, taking the war out of man is our own permission to embody and remember that tantric temple work. And this is the absolute beauty of where we find ourselves in this moment in time. I'm 47. I'm up to here with conditioning of how to be with a man. So the whole body is programmed from the 80s and the 90s. And yet there's this other self that is remembering this temple work. It takes everything within my power to stay aligned to that one and not care less how that's being met, because at the beginning it might be met with judgment and suspicion. And what are you up to? What are you doing? You know, and just stay sovereign. And whatever we do, we must never give the impression that we're teaching, training, guiding, shaping. that doesn't work. The men are not interested in that energy at all. And yet, like this work, we have to go first. So, you know, if I was lovemaking with Pete, I would allow that energy. I'm holding on to this like little flame on the inside, and I'm not going to go to that version that was made in the 80s. I'm staying right here with my lineage to Eve and Lilith and the Marys, and I'm going to let the body move. I'm going to let the breath come in, and I'm going to hold that crown upon my head. And I will look every form of conditioning in the eye and say, no, I'm not going there. And so I guess when I'm holding Pete, I'm not just like randomly holding him. I'm imagining that my hands are giant magnets. And as I stroke him, I'm collecting all those little filaments of iron filings and just releasing. And this might be just excessive thought forms or the world, you know, he's having to go out there all of the time. And so I'm cleaning him. You know, we might be in the love-making act. I'm sat on top of him. We're in Yab Yum. There's a penetration there. But I'm not just like randomly cuddling him. I am cleaning and taking all of that excessive mind energy out. And when you're really doing it, you won't be met with judgment. You won't be met with suspicion. But you've got to believe you're really doing it. And that's one of my favorite sayings. Doubt kills all alchemy. You got to really own what you're doing, but not with I am better than or I know more than. It's the other. It's like a deep humility. I love you so much, so completely, that I am praying deeply for your mind to settle into peace and that you can find your rich soul simply because you're in this presence with me. But if we try and be a sexual priestess, woo, they're off.
Yeah, in the middle, yeah.
Oh,
For
yeah,
sure.
I've learned that one.
And I find
so
it really is. It's that, just that level of present, right?
Yeah.
Just the level of presence, though. And I mean, that presence and that stillness, I mean, actually, that's what first like blew me away when I met my beloved Brendan. It was like his level of just solid presence and that stillness in presence is so beautiful. And that really it's, you know, it can be as simple as just being present. And I think that that's one of the hardest things we find in this life is like how to be present. But something so beautiful as lovemaking and so pleasurable and so coming back to source and to the divine, that it doesn't even matter what your, you know, what your beliefs are necessarily or what you think is going on, that we can meet each other there in that moment of divine coming together and that presence of just seeing one another naked.
Yeah.
So rich and beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing some of your embodied wisdom and all that you're bringing forth. And I so look forward to dancing in the flesh with you when the time is right.
Yes. Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who are here watching and being with us today. And so much love on your journey of remembrance. Namaste.
Namaste.
Much love.